Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the 5D Show. This is your host, Sean. And before I begin the episode today, just going to talk about we have a little thing going right now up on our social media accounts. It's on Instagram, Facebook. Little promotional giveaway, so check that out. It's got some gift cards and some supplements and some stuff in there that you might like. So check that out, and also keep an eye out for our we're going to be launching a little bit of a charity platform, I guess, for Wounded Warriors and Canadian Legacy Project. So we should be trying to build some donations up for that soon. So give us a follow on social media and check out our stuff. And to kick off today's episode, we got Jef Alpaugh on the line with us. Jeff is from Jeff Alpaugh Custom, home of the world's most dangerous Jess shirts, and they're in the sock game too. And I think they're in the mask game now as well. So, and Jeff's also a Canadian Forces veteran as well. He was an infantry officer when he was in. So, Jeff, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on. How's it going?
Hey, Sean, thanks so much for having me. You are absolutely right about all the games that we're in. I love all that stuff, and you're absolutely right about military stuff as well. And I'm just so grateful that you're having me on the show today. So thank you.
Perfect. I'm grateful that you could make it on today. You got some cool stuff I'd love to talk about. So I guess start with some small talk here. How's your summer going overall? What are you up to this summer?
Great and complicated question. So I'm not having much of a summer in the traditional sense of enjoying summer things. I guess I'm glad that there's not a lot of snow between my car and where I'm going. I do have a young son, and I do like taking him for walks as opposed to being sort of cooped up. But I guess I'll start with maybe something that's going to start or talk about at the end. But for folks who don't know, we'd opened our second store February 18th, and that is probably one of the worst times. It will go down as one of the worst times in the history to open up a second store, which is actually much bigger than our first store. So we spent all of our treasure, energy, and effort on this second store, and then due to COVID, obviously that needed to close down and is closed down. And what it has meant from a just high level, it means that for a long time I was working very, very long hours, right? More input than ever before, for less output than ever before, right? Because I was trying to figure out how to make my very experiential retail-based business, do the online e-commerce and also develop a different product that people would be into at this time. So I've spent most of my summer actually in the basement of my store or in my bedroom when I was self-isolating, because I live in a condo and don't have a home office, designing a mask that I think is a great mask, and learning how to make my website not just a website, but actually an e-commerce experience with sort of all the widgets and bells and whistles of a really cool e-commerce site, and then also learning how to present information in a written format in a really powerful way. Luckily, learning all those three things or doing all those three things and then tying it all together has meant, some sort of success for us. So we've been able to bring all the staff back, and we got a business again. But I can tell you, I don't know much about summer. I know a lot about being locked in my bedroom or the basement of my store.
Yeah, that's not a surprise, but it's good to hear. It's good to hear that you got the staff back on, and you're making
because obviously I keep up with all my Army buddies all the time, right? I'm always keeping up. Now we're all to the wind, and I've been out for long enough that I maybe should be a little bit disconnected, but I'm fairly connected with everybody. And all my buddies during COVID are like, "Oh, this is great. Our job is to just stay healthy." So everyone's just jacked and tanned, right? Summer 2020, tough year for the private sector, but if you're in the Army, it is the summer of G.I. Joe, right? And I'm just shrinking and getting smaller and paler and stooped over my laptop like never before, thinking like, one of the reasons, and I don't mean to speak poorly about the Army, one of the reasons I did get out is I did find myself doing more paperwork than PT near the end of my time. And I live for the action. Anybody who knows me knows that. So, but now all of a sudden I find myself stooped over the laptop just as much, which isn't my favorite, but I guess we do what we can to fight another day.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And like you said, it's a it's a good time to be a soldier right now. They had plenty of time to just kind of work on the fitness and drink some beers at home, do whatever you want to do. And they I guess the funny thing is, I said to a few people, is like, the Army kind of prepared you for this. Like, the Army prepared me for this, to have all my stuff taken away and sit at home doing nothing. It wasn't as bad as I'm sure it was for some people, especially in the business industry, but definitely interesting summer to say the least. But you were talking about your mask there. So I was actually going to bring that up later. So obviously you're in the mask game now. What's that been like? I seen some pretty sweet designs there. You just want to touch a little bit more maybe on where you're going with the mask?
When COVID first hit, right, I really consider like the COVID D-Day in North America, March 16th. Okay, that was the day, at least for us in Canada, where the Prime Minister came out. I think he said he was going to give a briefing at like 11 or 1. Yeah, he came quite a bit later than that. And I think we were all kind of like hoping for a plan, and we didn't really get a plan, but we all knew it was serious, right? Whereas before, even that week before, it was like, well, it seems like it could potentially be getting serious, but the only barometer we had was the memes we saw on Facebook, right? And then all of a sudden, that's when it became serious. I know March 16th, that was a Monday. That was the day. Well, the Sunday before, I told everyone that we would not be opening this week. We would be closed, and I would come up with a cutting plan by the end of the week. Now, immediately, most clothing companies, I'd say 99% of clothing companies, of course, and in a smart fashion, started making masks, right? And that was a new product that they were making. Now, I am a little bit prideful, and I really don't like I like being first, not last, and probably everyone can certainly relate to that. So I sort of didn't want to get into the mask thing just because I felt like everyone was doing it, Yeah. And you can remember that first week, March 16th, the first 2 weeks of COVID, the last 2 weeks of March, like literally everyone who owned a sewing machine was like, I went to Fabricville and I spent $75 on fabric, and I'm going to make 4 dozen masks. And if you need a mask, let me know. Right. And it was just masks were everywhere. And I must admit, I was like, it looks like the mask thing is covered. That's what it looked like to me. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm going to, I just got other stuff to focus on. And not to mention, also try to remember at that time, I mean, I didn't know what I was trying to do, because we're a very retail, very personal, the experience is as important as the product when it comes to the world's most dangerous dress shirts, right? So I was trying to figure out everything about e-commerce, and my original aim, because you always have to pick an aim, right? My original aim was, this is what we're going to do. We're going to figure out how to sell 1 pair of socks to 1 new person online every day. Okay, so what that means is that like if my dad bought a pair of socks, that don't count. It's got to be somebody who's never bought anything at JC before. And that's what I was going to spend my time doing. Now, it was difficult because, one, I don't really actually like computers that much. I didn't start the business so I could be on the computer more. I started so I could be on the computer less. So I don't have like a love or an aptitude or affinity for like a lot of the e-commerce stuff and the nitty gritty of it. But I knew that, whether I liked it or not, I had to get good at it. And another thing that was difficult was, I had no guidance, no mentorship. So it was kind of like, okay, like this, the reason I wanted to do that is if I could sell 1 pair of socks to a new person every day on the internet, I could eventually double that. And then I could eventually triple that. Right. But I wanted to create some sort of constant that I could then 2x, 3x. And as you know how it goes. But the thing is, I was also thinking this might be the dumbest thing ever. What if literally in a week from now, society completely breaks down and we're fighting each other in the streets with pitchforks and shotguns? how foolish of me to be in my bedroom trying to figure out how to sell socks on the internet when there might not even be an internet next week. Yeah. And that seems crazy today, but in that last 2 weeks of March, that wasn't that crazy. Right? No. One part of me was like, I should be scouting farmland up north and hardening the body. Would you agree?
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely. It was crazy. Well, it was wild.
I had a plan that had about 1% chance of succeeding in my mind. It required 12 hours of energy a day, and there was a 10% chance I was even focusing on the right thing, right? And what happened was, eventually I made a decision, okay, even though there's no way this is going to work, you got to pick a direction and just push, right? That's just part of the human spirit, right? You got to have a goal and you got to push as hard as you can. So I chose that lane, didn't harden the body. I was on the computer all the time. Although I ran a lot in my socks to product test them a bit because I love our socks for running. Yeah. But what ended up happening was after a while of studying that, I was looking at the masks and I was reading a lot of mask reviews of what people were not liking about their mask. And then over time, I kind of thought, well, what if we made an awesome mask? And what if, because everyone was saying too, why don't you make a mask? I want a dangerous mask. I like a mask with your patterns. But I was like, well, what if we made a mask that was just outright superior? And then after we made the better mask, we threw dangerous patterns on it, just as the cherry on top. Yeah. Do you see the difference there? I didn't want to just make another mask, but it's cool because it has my dangerous fabrics. I wanted to make the best mask and then, as an added bonus, put our dangerous fabrics on it. And then I thought, you know what, that is a worthy challenge. So we came up with this mask. I thought it was a great mask. Then all the tools I was learning to study e-commerce with the socks, well, I continued to do that while I was, thinking about masks. And then I sort of, applied them all together. And what happened was super cool. I'm going to try to tell it. I think it's really horrible to be braggadocious, in a pandemic when people are literally starving. So forgive me if it sounds like that, but I was, a few weeks away from utter bankruptcy, and I'm talking like lose your house, not just your business. Right. Yeah. And I, at this time, my son just turned 1 at that time. And my wife was, 3 months pregnant. So it was, this is one of those real business stories from the streets that, you don't learn about in business school. So we were in a tough place here. And then, I put out this mask on a Friday. It was May 8th, a Friday at 6 p.m., just in an email to the people who are on our email list and to on a Facebook post, just the people who are on our Facebook. And really, I thought I would sell 100 or 200 of these masks to people who are sort of fans of the dangerous movement. And I thought that, people would get behind me because it was, me and they're fans of the brand and all that stuff. But I figured we sell 100 or 200 masks, and I'd go to the bank and say, look, I'm still trying. I'm still innovating, but you guys need to lend me some money, right? Yeah. And we put it out there, and I sort of let it go because it was Friday at 6, and I'd had an incredibly long week. So I actually went for a walk with my wife and my son, and then we put Jack to bed, and we watched a movie, for the first time since COVID had started. And we went to bed, and we woke up the next day and saw that actually Friday from 6 p.m. to midnight, we sold 500 masks. Oh, wow. Which we felt was, great and substantial. So we were like, just dancing a jig. We thought that was wonderful. And then the next day we sold 500 masks, and we were like, holy crap, that we were not set up to make 1,000 masks. And it wasn't 500 masks a day, no doubt. But, but people still were buying the masks. The figure dropped off considerably. But every day people were still buying some masks, and then people wanted filters. And, we were getting the masks. We saw getting the masks all handmade, right? Sort of an artisanal quality to it all, which means that, tough to just escalate the production like crazy. So what happened was a lot of people waited a long time for their masks, right? Like some people waited 5 or 6 weeks because it took us, 2.5 weeks to get their mask in, and then put it in the mail. And the mail system is still right. And I'm not trying to blame our mail system. Remember, guys, that it doesn't matter if it's FedEx or Canada Post. They all have less staff, significantly less staff. They have way more procedures and way more packages than they've ever had, right? Yeah. So our mail is taking a really long time, which is creating a bad customer experience. And then all of a sudden, I don't know if you go on our Facebook. I actually love social media. I go on social media all the time. I've had to take a break. I don't think I've been on social media for over 1 week for like 8 days now, which is such a long time for me to not even check my Facebook, when people who know the business, who are listening to your show, know that I'm all about social media. I'm on all the time. But I've actually had to, I still do all our posts and stuff, but I've been posting through an app as opposed to directly, because a lot of the comments on our social media have gotten so hostile, right? With people accusing me of being a profiteer, people accusing me of being a crook, people accusing me of being incompetent because their mask took too long. And then, of course, the regular round of racist trolls that exist on Facebook have really centered on us, because a lot of them are very anti-mask. So it's just been such a wild ride, as you can imagine, where we used to be this. You came into our store, we sat down with you personally, had a glass of water or a beer and relax, and we designed custom shirts right from scratch, custom suits, right? And we maybe would have 1, 2, or 3 appointments a day, to all of a sudden, we get 200 emails a day.
Wow.
I can assure you, we are not equipped to mail out thousands of masks and also answer 200 emails a day, right? So we've had to really grow in everything in e-commerce, from, the way the website works, but also to everything on the fulfillment and customer service side. And it's actually been tough for me, because when if you were to look at our Google reviews and stuff like that, you can tell, I founded the business on customer service. That was the most important thing to me, right? And it had to be such a great experience. And then you look at the masks, right? And there's some people who will outright say on our post, like, this is the worst customer service. And it's like, well, I think we're great. Not one email has gone unanswered, not one issue's not been rectified. But, if somebody orders a mask and they don't get it in 48 hours, and it's not like Amazon, right? We went from like highly personalized, highly custom, belly to belly with people, to essentially selling Big Macs to the masses on the internet. And it's a little bit different. And I must admit, I like the in-person a lot better. But this is what we got to do now to get us through this thing. And I think we do sell the best masks out there. And obviously I love taking pride in developing great products. But that's COVID and masks in a nutshell there, Sean. And I know I didn't give you a lot of space to ask more questions, but that's the size of it.
Yeah, no, that's like you said, it's tough right now with, I know, because I order a ton of stuff online, everything you can think of. So obviously whenever I deal with, Canada Post and stuff like that, there's a bit of a delay. And, I know most people are aware of that, but obviously sometimes you have to deal with the other side of things. And,
yeah. Well, when you got thousands of folks, you have to remember, if only 0.01% of them are maybe going through something in their own life, or maybe just generally unreasonable, right? That number still is very large.
Yeah. And, so we're talking about, you're talking a little bit on socks in there, and, socks are something cool. And I think it's something more, I guess, somewhat recent, where like within the last, 10, 15 years, where people like design socks, whether it's for running or, wearing it with a suit to a wedding or whatever, to work. And you got a cool, flashy socks that people notice, when you're sitting down. And I think the socks are still kind of going up, in my opinion. Like, I love a cool design sock. And I believe you guys got a Sock of the Month club, right? Is that right?
We do, and same approaches with the mask. Like, I think that our sock, like the sock itself, is a really cool, great product, in the sense that it's meant to be sort of like a Lululemon product, right? Like, it is, I've run a half marathon in these socks. I've certainly run, between 10 to 20K in the socks. Often don't run a full marathon, only because I'm lazy, not because of the sock. One of our buddies, former Patricia, Derek Anaquad, he rocks the socks running like 100 kilometers, absolutely out of control. But I want to design a sock that could be worn with your suit, right? I'm in a suit today, and I'm wearing my socks, or out casually in your jeans, or running long distances, playing sports in the gym, right? Because I only like to have one kind of sock in my closet, right? All my socks are the same. They're obviously, Be Dangerous JC socks. And I wanted the sock to be awesome, even if it's just a white sock or black sock. But then, of course, we put our wild prints on. And for those who haven't been to our website, you got to understand, there's a lot of people who sell crazy socks, and there's like a bunch of like snowmen or like buses or like books. Like, it's like cheesy, right? Like, our designs, like, they're prints, they're designs, but they're like abstract, cutting edge fashion, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like the idea behind the sock. Like, the sock itself is awesome, but then we've got the best, most sort of cutting edge designs.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, you can buy plenty of cheesy ones, cheap quality, but the designs and the quality are what most people are going to look for and want, especially when you're you're on your feet all day, whether it's running or whatever you want to wear it with your suit. So and kind of like you're talking a little bit earlier about in the Army, and I'm sure obviously as an officer, lots of paperwork and computer work, and that's not the type of stuff that you like. And then obviously, in my non-qualified opinion, with no evidence to back it up whatsoever, but obviously nowadays, like, the e-commerce, like you said, is huge, and the social media presence is huge, and that's what attracts a lot of people, is their experience on the website, the e-commerce, the social media. So obviously, I know you as more of a people person, and you're kind of probably more in your element when you have people come in, you get to fit them yourself, you get to talk to them. But But yeah, I guess that a big part of your job would be the computer side, and making sure everyone's experience from start to finish is good.
Yes, it is. And over time, as we grow the company, hopefully I'll be able to delegate some of those things, right? And I'll be the famous CEO that delegate and disappear is his middle name. But at this point, not quite, right? For instance, sometimes the way we do hook people in is with like sort of articles and stuff like that, right? Well, who's going to write the article? Well, it's going to be me, right? Like, that's just how that works, right? And then a lot of the things on the figuring out side of the e-commerce I have to do. And of course, I'm sure you can imagine, I personally write a lot of emails. And just because of my military training, I also kind of write, not necessarily like the full op words, but when we kind of give company-wide instruction like that, there's a lot of typing involved. Luckily, I'm not as ruthless with myself on the formatting as the Army would be, with those proper tabs and spaces and all that type of stuff. We err on the side of just getting the info out, so that's good. But certainly the one thing we're working on now is, hey, so I don't know if you've been on the website, and there's a part that says design your own shirt. It's a tab at the top, and you can design your own shirt on our website. And it's super cool. We've been using that for quite a while now, but we were just on the cusp of introducing a new 3D shirt designer right when COVID hit. And so we actually worked on it a little bit more, and got it to about the 90%. And then the mask thing went haywire, and all of a sudden we had to divert all our efforts onto fulfilling the mask orders. But now I think we're at a bit of a homeostasis, right? We're all caught up on our masks, so that's great. So now we're going to introduce this new shirt designer, which will not be as fun as designing in person with us. I don't think anything could ever beat that, but it will make designing your own shirt on the internet super cool. Super cool. So I can't wait. I think by the time the episode drops, we'll have that done. So that'll be great.
Yeah, actually, I seen that. I came across it on your website the other day, and that is cool. I know obviously it's like you said, the next best thing, and I think people will love that. I think people love to, have that control and be able to kind of put their touch on it, which is super cool. And I guess that's what you're all about. And everyone likes to create their own thing. They can, create their own dangerous shirt and look good, feel good, right?
Oh yeah, well, that's the idea. Like Sean, you got to be wearing you, not what I tell you to wear. You know what I mean? That's the key. You got to empower you to be your own designer.
Yeah, and then when you put together something awesome, and you like I said, look good, feel good, and the confidence. When you're rocking that, you have that confidence when you're looking good. And that's what.
Yeah, and it's all about the waterfall compliments that generates. You're like, thanks, I designed it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and kind of to backpedal, touch back, and you were talking, obviously a little bit about the work you have to do and the emails you have to send and stuff like that, and how kind of, back to the Army. And I guess for you, I guess for everyone, just like anyone who's a veteran who's in the Army and starts a business, or even if they maybe open a franchise or whatever they do, small business, I think the Army like really kind of sets you up well for that. And I just like something about veterans that have certain tools, I guess, that are untapped in a lot of just normal civilians. And I guess that probably helped you out a lot, just with the whole when you first started.
It did for me. It did for me at the start. It does for me now. I'll say, I think what the Army does is it really grounds you. It grounds you, and it really makes you appreciate what it takes to coordinate a large effort. Okay. And that large effort could be getting through the day at basic training, or it could be coordinating a section attack, or it could be coordinating, a brigade attack, right? But like when you watch Army movies as a kid, right, you think the Army is about just running and gunning, and it certainly is. But then as you actually get into the Army, you learn it is about shoot, move, communicate, and you start to realize that a lot of people can shoot and move, but mastering that communication is what makes really strong military units, right? Because shooting and moving uncoordinated or any type of a haphazard, or not drilled down right to the penny or right down to the last round, causes havoc and chaos and destroys even your own side. But an incredibly well coordinated effort just decimates an enemy, right? And I think you'd agree with that. And so a lot of people, like somebody like me especially, who wants to start a business, and that tend to be people who look to the future. And I believe it's all about looking forward and looking at the future and what's out over the horizon, right? You need to look at the future, try to get ahead of it, not look at it because you're worrying, look at it because you're going to create, right? But I think people like myself who have that type of mindset can often get lost in understanding some of the fundamentals that the Army gives you. And I'll give you an example, right? So like, what's important right now? And this is a great question to ask yourself that the Army teaches you to ask, right? The Army teaches you to ask yourself stuff like, what's important now? Has the situation changed? And a number of these other sort of reassess questions, right? Well, what's important now for a guy like me who sells suits and dress shirts and now is selling masks, but the masks, at some point, everyone's going to have a mask, or hopefully we get a vaccine and this whole pandemic's over. I pray to God, I think we all do. But what does the future hold? Well, I think that a lot of people are getting used to remote work. I think a lot of people are getting used to dressing down in business casual, right? So probably what the people who are getting my stuff before are going to want in the future is probably custom jeans. And luckily I've had that in the works for a couple of years now. And I think I'll be ready to deliver on that, in about 1 to 3 months. They're probably going to want stuff more like polo shirts. And their look is definitely going to be a very, dress jean polo shirt or wild dress shirt. So there's some crossover, but there's some changes, right? And I need to look at what changes am I going to do to meet those market demands. But without the Army, I don't think I'd be the type of guy who could prioritize and say, okay, what's important now? Well, that's what needs to happen in the future. Okay, well, what is the priority, right? Otherwise I'd be the type of guy trying to make all the products at once. okay, what is the priority? What resources do I actually have, right? And then doing that sort of proper, what we call a combat estimate, but that factor analysis, right? And even principles like how we would, we know 16 steps of battle procedure, they're sort of an order of march, right? And you need to make sure that you do a recce in advance, because that recce is going to help you identify the following things, right? We know there's going to be an actions on component, and we know that if it's not communicated in meticulous detail to your entire team, they're not going to truly understand what's in your head. So I think a lot of those things really ground you as somebody who's probably not naturally very grounded. The military gives you these tools, and they just hammer in your head so much that you can't help but consider them as you go forward and try to plan and create, things that other people haven't done or seen before.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and I agree with all of that. And one example, I guess, to bring up, and I'm sure everybody who knows you and is a Jeff Alpaugh Custom fan knows this, but for those of you who maybe don't, or maybe just discovering, the world's most dangerous dress shirt, Jeff was on Dragon's Den back in, was it 2017? Or was it 2018?
It was 2017. Yeah. It feels like a lifetime ago.
Everything feels like a lifetime ago after 2020. But Dragon's Den. And I guess that's kind of where you're set up good as an ex-officer in the Army, and you're going to pitch. And anytime you're pitching, like whenever you pitch to even just a customer, but when you're pitching on national TV, and it's kind of, almost for you, like just like pitching your idea and orders or whatever back in the day. And what was kind of that experience like? Was there any nerves, or how was that whole experience on Dragon's Den?
So nervous. So I'll tell you all about the nerves, because guys will watch the show, and I don't know if they'll think I was nervous or not nervous, but I can assure you I was very nervous. And if folks do want to watch the show, just Google dangerous dress shirts or dangerous shirts and Dragon's Den, right? So if you write dangerous shirts, Dragon's Den into your Google bar, it's going to be a CBC link, and you can click it and watch it right on their website, and it's good. And if you got 7 minutes, I think you'll enjoy the show. And if you take 40 minutes to listen to me now, I can tell you that 7 minutes will be much more entertaining. But I will tell you, when you first go out there, first off, like the week before, I could never sleep. Like, I was so anxious, because you're just thinking like, man, they're going to destroy me on TV, and I'm going to look like an idiot, and I'll never be able to live it down. And every hole in your business, which, by the way, if your business has no holes, like, why are you going on Dragon's Den, right? Like, it's really for small entrepreneurs, right? Not for Amazon. But every hole in your business looks like it's just gaping and massive. But I can tell you, right when you're going on the show, my nerves, like my heartbeat was just like bump, a bump, a bump, a bump, just hammering back and forth. And it's funny, because actually they have you in front of a door, and the door has a light, not unlike when you're the first jumper on a plane, right? And there's a red light, and the jump master is, does go, and the light turns green, and you just go, right? It is sort of like that. Like, you're standing there and you're looking at this door, and you're thinking, the minute I cross the door, right, the TV audience could see me, so I can't like just run back, right? The minute I cross the door, life changes forever, and I just have to figure it out, right? Like like once you jump out of the plane, you have to land. You can't get back in the plane. It really does feel like that. And I can remember I was so nervous, and I was looking at the door, and I was like, maybe when the light turns green, I just don't go, right? I just don't walk through the door. And my wife, was beside me, and there was a guy with a camera, and he's like asking me a bunch of dumbass questions, right? He's got this camera, and he's like, hey, Jeff, this is what he asked me, by the way. He goes, and which I will tell you, the listening audience, but I wouldn't tell him because he was annoying me. He goes, Jeff, tell me 3 things that your military experience did to prepare you for this moment. And in my mind, I thought, I've literally never seen a clip of Dragon's Den where someone gets interviewed at this doorway. So I know, seriously, dude, I know this footage isn't making it on the show. So why are you bothering me? Like, get out of my face with this camera. So I was like, well, I think it gave me a good attitude. And I think, my wife can handle the rest of that question. And then I was just like looking at the light, because I was just trying to remember the first thing I was going to say. Because, if the first sentence goes well, probably the rest of it will too. If it goes bad, irrecoverable.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So, but it was funny because my wife then got really nervous because, she's thinking like, man, if Jeff fumbles the ball out there, I gotta recover it. And I am a bit more of, I'll say, the pitch man in our relationship. So yeah, so it was, anyways, got out there so nervous. You're just like trying not to fall down the stairs as you walk out there. And then I will tell you the first part, you're kind of like, my name is Jeff and this is my partner, Emily. And, you just feel like an idiot because it's kind of like what you're supposed to say. Every beginning Dragon's Den thing sounds like that. My name is Jeff and this is my wife, Emily, and da da da. Right. And I just felt like a fool while I was telling that part. But then once I could just talk about the shirts and the business, then it felt like I'm talking to you right now, right? Like we were out there for an hour. It felt like 5 minutes.
Yeah. And I can definitely see that going on that and you have an idea of what you're going to pitch, and obviously your business pretty well inside out, but I guess there's always that chance that they might hit you with some kind of question that you didn't think about, and then you're kind of freeze like you said. So yeah, I guess that takes a lot of guts to go there, but I'm sure overall you're happy you did it and good experience.
Oh, I'm super happy. Well, hey, why don't I, as maybe a final thought, I think folks would like this. I'll tell you a couple things that helped me out on the show that I really think are military principles translating. And, I think the first thing you have to do is like, and the reason I think we got a good result, if people watch it, typically on the show Dragon's Den, the companies that do well have really great numbers. They've already sold tons of stuff. They're unique inventions, right? As opposed to a dress shirt, which, I didn't invent the dress shirt, although I may claim I did later. Right. And then 3, they're very scalable, right? Because the dress shirts are custom, that's not the same as like, selling masks online, right? Which is in fact very scalable, right? So our business, we didn't have the numbers. We weren't a unique invention and we weren't scalable, in an obvious way. So those are the 3 things they're looking for. We didn't have any of those, and yet we still had a good result. And I think that people also need to appreciate that the reason that Dragon's Den is so difficult is because there's a lot of forecasting that needs to go into it, because your, pitch, like when we decided to go on the show, the business was only 9 months old. When we went on the show, the business was like 14 months old, right? And when the show actually aired, it was like almost 2 years old. Do you see what I'm saying? So somehow, when I've only been in business 9 months, I need to figure out what type of messaging I'm going to want the TV audience to see when the business is 2 years old, over a year away.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So try to imagine that. And then at the same time, they tell you that you have 1 minute at the start of the episode. You have 1 minute uninterrupted. And then they just start asking you questions. Okay, think about it. We already talked for 38 minutes. Okay, imagine if in 1 minute you had to convince a panel of 6 people that your idea is a great idea and that you are a competent leader and uniquely suited to lead the idea. And number 3, you want to get that viewer at home excited so he wants to buy your product. Okay, those 3 things would be difficult to do if you had 45 minutes for each of them, let alone 1 minute to do them all. So just let that sink in for a second.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge you're facing, right? So next time you see somebody just absolutely get ripped to shreds on Dragon's Den, have compassion for them, because I can tell you it's a tall order. It's a very tall order. So I think the things that the military taught me that helped me do well on it was, I was able to define success clearly, right? The Army really, that line in orders, like, what is your end state? Like, what does it look like after this is all over? I was able to get very clear on what I wanted out of it, right? And I knew that my purpose was to sell shirts. That was my number 1 purpose. And my priorities, because we always have priorities, we can't achieve everything. My first priority was to get on TV, which meant I needed to be entertaining, dynamic, and memorable. My second priority was to look good on TV, if possible, right? And my third priority was to make a deal, because I thought it helped with priority 1, 2. But that's very important. You can see that making a deal was my third priority. That doesn't necessarily mean it was right or wrong, but it's important that you know what you're trying to achieve. There are people who go on that show and make a deal, and they're so unmemorable that nobody cares about it, that they don't actually air it on television.
Yeah.
So do you see how important that the military identifying of priorities is so critical, right? Another thing is time spent in recce. We know how critical it is. So I was lucky. I was able to interview 3 people who'd already been on the show. So they were able to explain to me what it would feel like, what it would look like in advance. That it really helps a lot when you're going into a new environment. You've only got one crack. Another thing on the recce side of it, or I'll say rehearsals, is we actually went to an MBA class at UNB, and anyone who's ever been in an MBA class knows that MBAs are the most savage, ruthless students on the planet, because all an MBA wants to do is prove how smart they are, right? That is their mission in life. So we went in and we gave our pitch to a bunch of MBAs, and it was awful. It was way worse than any Dragon. The questions they asked were way harder. They asked follow-up questions, and the whole time, like, none of them were there thinking they might invest in a business that day. They just wanted to show their professor that they were the smartest kid in that class. And I'll tell you, these guys ripped us to shreds. It was a classic, like, train hard, fight easy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was awful, dude. So only do that if you got a thick skin, I'll tell you. But it made it so that when we went to the Dragons, I was almost upset that they were asking such easy questions.
Yeah, I guess so. And yeah, when they're that's a pretty good rehearsal environment, like you said, to go to these people trying to prove themselves to the professor. And then that's sure that helped a lot. And like you said, especially with great that you got the opportunity to talk to people that had been on the show for that, that recce element, and know what you're walking into, so you're not getting some bad tips and walking into God knows what. But so I just wanted to, I didn't get around to asking just 2 last little points that I kind of forgot about. First is, I believe you have you had an agreement with Canex. Is that correct? Yeah. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
Oh no. So what's that like? That's good. Now. Yeah. Or
what's
like,
the deal?
What's how's that work? Are you is your stuff in the store, or how's the?
Yeah, no, that is a great question. So the folks at the Canex were they were in like an opportunity phase, because there's way more percentage-wise females in the military than there ever had been before. And in fact, not hard quotas, but the Canadian Armed Forces was certainly making it, and is making it now, a goal to get the male-female ratio significantly more even or on par, right? And to that end, you can remember even 10 years ago, a female in the military, their mess kit, right, started to slowly evolve from being, okay, this is just a man's uniform that you're just going to put on, to changing it a little bit over time. And the one thing that they didn't have was, in the Canex stores, they didn't have a female cut tuxedo shirt that goes with the mess kit. And of course, we've been doing custom shirts for females for a long time. So the general in charge of CADTC at the time came and visited me in my store, sort of dropped in unannounced, and was like, hey, this is this issue we're having. Our current dress shirt supplier really only does male shirts, and they're not really interested in delving into female shirts. Do you think you could help us out? And of course I said yes. Now, I had, it was a bit tough because I had a quality standard I wanted to maintain. Remember that any shirt in a Canex with my name on it is still going to represent me and the Dangerous Movement and the whole brand. So I wanted to elevate the quality a little bit, which of course meant I had to charge more and things like that. But it was, but we were able to come to an agreement, and they got tuxedo shirts for females in all the Canex stores. Luckily, it was very popular, so popular that now all the dress shirts are done by us, the males and females, except for the pirate shirt. And after a lot of contemplation, I have decided, I think post-COVID, we're even going to do the pirate shirt.
Oh, nice.
So if you need just a great white dress shirt, females, there's not a classic white dress shirt carried in the Canex. They have both the pirate shirt and the tuxedo shirt. But for males, they have a tuxedo shirt from us, and also just a nice white dress shirt. And I think you'll find if you go in, the price compared to the quality and the value is great. So if guys are in the Army, they find themselves, hey, I just need a white dress shirt for whatever reason, go to the CanX, and we've got great ones off the rack that you can just pick up today.
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds like a great thing that you got going there.
Yeah, it's a big win for everybody. So I was super pumped about it, and it's cool for me because I live right by Bay Town, and sometimes I find myself in the CanX, not since COVID, but and the shirts are there, and sometimes people, because I live in this community, people recognize me and ask me about them, and we get to talking about it, and it's super
exactly.
cool.
Let's go. It's CanX plan. Fire up the old CanX plan. Get yourself
exactly.
get yourself a dangerous shirt. And obviously earlier in the show you touched on the store. It was unfortunate timing. COVID kind of came in and just as you were opening that new store, but I know Waterloo, I'm actually originally from the Waterloo area, so hopefully that store works out good. Seems like it'd be a great spot for it, and Waterloo's a great spot, so hopefully that works out for you. It's awesome that you got that second store up. And is who's running the second store?
That's a great question. A really good friend of mine, Hasib, is running that store, and he was with another custom clothing brand a few years ago. That is just an awesome company. I won't name drop them or anything like that, but the founders of it are friends of mine, and they've been mentors throughout. These guys are just great. And his name is Hasib. He was running that store, and he just prior to, he had a gig where he was actually going to different stores and advising them. Like, I had hired him to come to my store in Fredericton for 5 days, right? And just tell us how to run our show, right? Sort of a consultant for retail with a really, really great knowledge of custom, and operationally just so sound. And a lot of his clients actually were in America, American based. And then obviously COVID happened and there wasn't going to be as much travel. And he was in Mississauga and I was in Waterloo, and he did come to our grand opening, and people can see a video of our grand opening on our website. It was, let's just say there was a lot of energy for a store grand opening, and he was just like blown away. So we were lucky. We were able to have a few long walk talks, beforehand. And he actually, was a master corporal in Queen's Own Rifles. So we've just got tons in common with both, former military and just love clothes. So, and then it just made sense. And I got to say, like, this is the guy who for years, when I've had questionable clothes, I've been calling, right? So, and now he's actually there running our Waterloo store. So, even better than if I personally could be in two places at once. So pretty excited about that.
Yeah, that's great how that worked out, and sounds like you got a great person there running that store, and hopefully that works out. And
yeah, we've had a lot of luck. We've had a lot of luck, that's for sure. It's not always been easy, but man, we have gotten about 1,000 lucky breaks, and that's one of them. So it's hopefully those keep happening.
I think everyone deserves some lucky breaks after COVID, and yeah, you got to work hard and be good to get that luck though. So you're doing the right things, and that's awesome. But thanks again, for coming on the show. I know you're busy. You got the dangerous shirt movement, and the mask game now, like I said, and you're father and husband. So thanks a lot for taking the time to come on and just chat a little bit about it. And it's great having you on. And for everybody else that hasn't, check out Jeff's stuff. Get yourself ready for a custom shirt and a mask, get in the mask game, and some socks and stuff like that. And thanks a lot, Jeff, for coming on the show.
Well, hey, Sean, it was just great chatting with you. To all your listeners, thanks a ton. Really appreciate it. If you want to check out our website, just Google the world's most dangerous dress shirts. If you want to check out the Dragon's Den thing, dangerous shirts, Dragon's Den, that'll get you there. And thanks a ton for listening. I appreciate it. Feel free to reach out, and thank you. And Sean, this is a great podcast. So keep doing what
Thanks
you're doing.
Thanks a lot, brother. Jeff. And again, everybody, that was Jeff Alpaugh from Jeff Alpaugh Custom. The episode, you'll know it. It'll be posted up on all of our platforms. You can find that in our links on our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook bios. You can listen on Spotify, Apple iTunes podcasts, or YouTube, Podbean, and feel free to give us a like or a follow, and maybe throw us a little 5-star rating on Apple. It definitely helps. So thanks a lot, everybody, and until next time, take care. Rating on Apple, it definitely helps. So thanks a lot, everybody, and until next time, take care.